What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Long Island Fish Guy here. On today's video, we're going to be doing an around the world update with some feeding content. That's right, we're going to be feeding the fish today. So before we get into the around the world update, let me show you guys what I'm going to be feeding the fish. I feed my fish Hikari Cichlid Gold. I feed them two different variations of it. I feed them the mini. I also feed them the medium, just because the fish are growing and I have many different types. I do the sinking carnivore pellets. It's actually a lot of food. Sinking carnivore pellets for the bottom feeding fish, the bottom dwellers. We have Aqueon shrimp pellets, which I'm running kind of low on. I feed this first because this is typically like a lower quality food. Some fish eat it, some fish don't. And it's a lot cheaper than the Hikari sinking pellets. And for the peacock bass alone, we have a big brine shrimp cube. If you watched the peacock bass feeding video, you saw these before, and it's just really for the peacock bass, just because he kind of explodes on it. So let's get started. I'm actually going to be walking across over here like I typically always do, and I'll start talking about the 125, which we're looking at right now. So since the last update that we had on this tank, I added a few new plants. What I added was, I basically rearranged as well, I added that Java fern down there, and basically in this tank a lot of these fish basically just destroyed the plants. So I essentially just needed to, and these are the minis, the Hikari minis. Essentially what happened was the plants were destroyed, and essentially what I needed to do is put them basically in a spot where they were going to be fine. I think a lot of the tank was destroyed by the striped tilapia down there. Also the Oscar, as you can see, he's gotten much bigger, and he's probably about, I'd say, 9 to 10 inches right now. Just to give you a good gauge as to the size. And I just put a little bit of the medium in here as well. Just spread them out kind of throughout the tank, because a lot of the fish like to, scale. You can see the hoplo catfish up here. The Lima has been eating up the top recently. But back to the plants. So the Java ferns, again, I feel like the Oscar and the tilapia, just because I've actually seen them do it, kind of just destroy the Java fern that did make it so far. And this Java fern's been in the tank for a while now. The newest plants in the tank are actually the Anubias. So the Anubias number 1 and the Anubias number 2. They have been in the tank now for just about, I would say about maybe 2 weeks or so. Basically what I did was I just jammed it into the hole that's down into there. And on that one I used a piece of string. The string is wound up on it. If you watch my peacock bass videos, it's always good to watch, just to show you the speed. Hope I have a good camera angle here. It really just destroys them. Now again, that's the little cube here of the brine shrimp. But other than that, not much to talk about. The fish in this tank from the last time I shot a video here has been, they've all been growing very rapidly. As the peacock bass, I put kind of a big cube in there, so he's spitting a little bit of it out. The fish in here are growing pretty quickly, pretty nicely. Just a point of reference for later. This is a female Jack Dempsey. If you're gonna watch the end of this video, I'm gonna show you my quarantine tank. I actually have a male Jack Dempsey in there, which is actually a pretty great looking fish. We're gonna talk extremely briefly on that as well. But that's basically it. Just wanted to show you I've had no deaths or anything like that in this tank. This is a South American cichlid tank. With my 2 hoplo catfish in it, and also my shovel nose Lima. Things are really going great in this tank. Don't project anything going wrong in regards to stocking. I know that I said that stocking in my tanks are going to be changing. This tank is going to primarily remain what it is right now, other than actually the peacock bass. That bass will be rehomed, unfortunately, when it gets too big for this tank. Peacock bass typically need a tank that's about 500 gallons or more. But I do have a little bit more feeding to do in this tank, but I know, I'm not really much more to talk about, so I'm going to move on to the next one. And I'm going to go ahead and just finish off feeding these fish. Guys, next up we have the 75 gallon. Again, this is a South American cichlid tank. I have my green terra in here, which is the newest fish in this tank. He's growing pretty nicely. He's got a couple nips on his fins from the spotted tilapia that I have in there, but no real aggression happening. It is a green terra, and I also believe it's a male, so he's definitely going to be able to hold his own in this tank. He's been in here for probably about 3 weeks now. Now I feed this tank very differently from the 125. Obviously a lot of Geophagus in this tank, and also a Santa Jupari, I always pronounce it wrong, but basically it's a Jupari. I always get confused with being Geos. Now the red hump Geos that are in this tank, which are these guys, I have 3 of them. They typically, they've adapted to the way I feed. I always feed the top stuff first, just so that the top dwellers don't eat a lot of the bottom feeding stuff. But they've really adapted to my feeding method and, feeding the top stuff first. So I'll just put in a couple of these shrimp pellets, just distributing them, putting them all over the tank so that it's a nice distribution. Next is the Hikari carnivore pellets. Now, what I was saying before was, certain fish, because I am a little bit on the overstocked side in some of these tanks. Now, I'm not really overstocked right now in this tank, but in regards to the way that how big these fish do get, I run the possibility, assuming that everybody lives in this tank and there are no deaths, I probably will have some sort of stocking issue. I kind of know in the back of my head what fish I would restock or rehome, which I'll save for a later date, and if I ever do have to do that, I'll do that. In this tank, in regards to any updates, there's a big, update in regards to the look of the tank. 2 things. Those plants over there in the corner are new. I don't know the names of them. I kind of just went to the guy at the pet store, give me those. He gave me the names, and I completely forgot them after the next 2 minutes because I kind of like the way they look. They're kind of like big beanstalks. Also, the Amazon swords that are in here. I have 5 Amazon swords, actually 6 now. The one's in the back. I'm trying to save for my 125. They had a massive overhaul yesterday. I took them and trimmed them down, and this tank looks much better because when I went from the 65 into this tank, now I'm going to be feeding algae wafers. When this tank was a 65 gallon, moving into the 75, the roots on the Amazon sword were very long. So in order for me to actually successfully plant them, especially with these Geos and the Jupari, I needed to actually take scissors and cut the roots because they were too long. And I said to myself that I'm going to be sacrificing some growth and the look of this tank for a while because I know that I'm going to probably have some die-off from cutting the roots, which I did. But everything survived, as you can see. I trimmed all the dead stuff back, and everything looks really good now. Also, plant-wise, the Anubias plants, I planted a lot of stuff on this big, nice piece of driftwood, and I think it looks really great too. That's Anubias nana down there, and I forgot the name of that type of Anubias. But everything, again, looks really great. And added this piece of Manzanita driftwood. I think I actually had that in the last video. But other than that, this tank's doing really great. The pike that's currently hiding down over here, I actually went into a pet store the other day and saw it. I was so surprised at how big it gets. It gets really big, and not to sound too sexual here, but pretty thick. It gets like a very big tubular shape. So that fish might give me problems in the future. I'm not a big fan of live feeding strictly because of disease purposes, but it's going to be very hard not to live feed that specific pike, maybe as he gets a little bit older. But that's on for another story. We could again talk about that later on at the end of this video. So that's going to be it for the 75. Next up, we have my 29 gallon. Alright guys, and in regards to my actually planted and decorated tanks, this is my last tank. This is my 29 gallon tank. I actually call this not even my South American tank. I call this my micro cichlid tank. Now, primarily in this tank, I have South American cichlids again because I do consider myself a South American cichlid guy. Now, in this tank, I have, which is actually kind of a newly stocked tank in regards to timing, is I have 3 Bolivian rams, I have 2 keyhole cichlids, I have 1 platinum angelfish, and I have a bunch of oddball fish in here. I have 1 horseface loach, I have 1 twig catfish, or farowella, or I think even some people call them whiptail catfishes. I have my 3 Cory catfish, which I've had since the beginning of time. I have a rubber-lipped pleco in here, as well as in the 75 I have a rubber-lipped pleco, which we very rarely see because of they're kind of outshined. Now again, these are the mini pellets. This is primarily just for the platinum angel, because obviously he eats off the top. But just so he gets a good diet of cichlid gold. And I break them actually in half. If there was a microscopic Hikari gold for cichlids, I would probably use that for that angelfish, but I don't have it. Now again, obviously the stocking in this tank, they're all very small fish, so I don't feed as much. I also actually have a gold nugget pleco in this tank as well, which again, pretty reclusive fish, stays primarily at the bottom on this part of the tank. Everyone typically comes out. In regards to the actual look of this tank, I absolutely love this tank. It is extremely colorful in regards to the green plants, and it has a nice overplanted look, but also has this nice open area here. In regards to updates, nothing really. In regards to maybe just the size of the fish. The keyhole cichlids have actually been growing pretty nicely in that tank. The keyholes are the ones with that nice line going down their eyes, and as they get older, they almost look like I almost want to call them the poor man's waru, just because they look really nice. They have this really nice golden color, and sometimes they even have developed a nice white. I actually think I have a male and a female, so if that is the case, I'm definitely going to try and breed them. I think that's what as a hobbyist, I think that's what I'm going to kind of move towards, is maybe move more towards breeding fish, and I don't know, we'll see. I've been toying with the idea, but who knows what I'll actually do. And that's basically it for this tank in regards to the feeding. And then for the plecos, I put in either in between 2 or 3 of the algae wafers. I'll put in 3 today. Just because I do actually have a lot of plecos in this tank, because the twig catfish is technically a pleco, or at least an algae eater. And then I have the royal I have the gold nugget pleco, the rubber-lipped pleco, and I have the farowella. Just threw that out there. An extra algae wafer and threw in the 125. But that's basically it for this tank. In regards to the plants in here, these plants here, they're called like Caribeus or something like that. They grow like a weed. I've split them about 1 billion times. I bought 2 of those, and I now have, I think, 10, and that was probably about 6 months ago. 2 of these weren't really doing so well, so I planted it right up front where they get the most amount of light. And again, with the splitting, I actually split 2 of those plants that were in the 75 and put them into this tank as well. But I actually really, in regards to stocking, and I mean, granted, this isn't really an around the world update, but I'll make a brief stint here. In regards to decorating a tank, I think this, my tanks specifically have a specific look, where you have your substrate, you have your wood, your plants, and then you have rocks. Now those rocks are something that I just prepared, just from the summer. I go to a park or somewhere and find some nice big rocks that I think would look good in the aquarium. I just prepare them, which is a video I can make maybe this summer if I ever go for some more rocks, and put them in the tank. But that's maybe for another video. This is actually becoming one of my favorite tanks. I think I'm just kind of mad, a little pissed the horse-faced loach isn't out. It's actually a great personality fish. And again, I mean, these Bolivian rams, they look excellent. This was my little, I think she's a female, just because she doesn't really show the big fork type tail fin like this one. But I mean, look at that Bolivian ram. It's a gorgeous looking one. Really nice. I think I might have 2 males, which isn't really a problem. I mean, they're not really killers, but I think that's going to be it for the 29. I'm getting stuck just looking at it, just because I typically do just get stuck looking at this tank. A lot of action going on right there in the bottom left-hand corner. But all good things must come to an end. I want to rewind this part of the video and just rewatch it over and over again. I feel like that this tank is much better now without the Green Terror in this tank, obviously, because a Green Terror in a 29 is never a good thing. But I was using it as a grow out tank. And also the removal of the rainbow fish. It just was so much cluster in here, and it was kind of overstocked. And now in regards to this tank, I feel like I'm at my stocking max, but it's also not too overstocked. I think it's, you know, stocked just right. Maybe a little overstocked, but it's okay. You can always upgrade the filtration on here, and it will definitely be good. I definitely overfed this 125 because there's pellets still on the top. But all right, moving on to the quarantine, I'm going to speak very briefly about that. All right, and this is the last tank. This is my 10-gallon quarantine tank. Currently have a male Jack Dempsey in here, and I have 2 horse-faced loaches. I bought the first horse-faced loach that's currently in my 29-gallon tank as an impulse. It was $1.99 at a Petco as I was shopping at a Petco with a friend. He wanted to get some fish, and I said to myself, that fish is really cheap, and I kind of really like it, so why not get it? So right down there in the bottom, those are the 2 horse-faced loaches. Now these guys are actually kind of still shocked, I think. They're also kind of a little bit of afraid of the Jack Dempsey, even though he doesn't really show any aggression towards them. This Jack Dempsey, if you watched my last video, I was afraid he had internal parasites, which I do not believe he has anymore. I think that he was just extremely underfed. Again, I got him at a big chain pet store, so he may not have been taken care of the best, but I knew he was a male, so I had to get him. This is my second feeding of the day. I fed him a few hours ago, but I'm trying to beef him up because I'm now on the thought process that he is not well nourished. Now see the way he just went after that pellet? Now, I used to only exclusively be able to feed him bloodworms. He only used to eat bloodworms. So now I ran a little bit of a gamble because bloodworms aren't really the greatest source of nutrition, and they were actually freeze-dried bloodworms. These ones to be exact. Now they're not the best nutritional value, so I said to myself, you know what? Let's run a risk. He can't be eating bloodworms for the rest of his life. He's going to be a big Jack Dempsey, hopefully. So let me starve him a little bit, and he'll start to learn to eat pellets. And that's exactly what happens. I'm breaking these in half, by the way, because he's still a little Jack Dempsey. Not too little. He's roughly, I would say, about 3 inches. 3 inches Jack Dempsey, not that bad. But boy, is he a beautiful Jack Dempsey. He's so nice. I can't wait for him to come to the front again because he just gets so much nice color on him. But yeah, that's, again, my quarantine tank I never really decorate. I took the piece of wood out of here because it had some weird wood shavings in here, and the water is still kind of cloudy from it. I did stop treating with this Paragard. It's not really used for internal parasites. It's more for ectoparasites. That's where you get the let me get that back in focus. The ectoparasites. And also the bacterial, fungal, and viral lesions. This is more for an outside type treatment for something where not really internal. So what my goal was to do was maybe feed him a lot so he poops out the parasites, and they would then die. But I don't think he's got internal parasites. He looks significantly better than he did a few weeks ago, or a week ago, because he's only about a week old, a little bit older than a week. but he looks much better, much thicker. You know, his that sunken stomach is definitely you know, gone away a little bit more, which is obviously a good thing. I know that those horse-faced loaches aren't really moving. It's because I feed them this. They don't really eat the pellets. Also bottom dwellers, so get that in focus here. I feed them just Aqueon Tropical Flakes. I actually got this when I initially bought my 55 gallon for my old time viewers. Let's crumple a little bit of that in. I'm okay with putting in a lot. I do water changes like 3 times a week on this tank, so I'm not too worried about overfeeding or something like that because the water quality is always going to be good. You know, I always, you know, make sure all my parameters and everything are right in this tank, and right when I turn off the lights, that's when the horse-faced loaches go to work. Fun fact also, before I end this video, horse-faced loaches in sand love to burrow. They actually are like dolphins. They'll go in and out and all this stuff. So it's actually pretty interesting to watch. I actually have a video of it in my 29 gallon of the horse-faced loach that's in there. I'm gonna go ahead and post that as well. I'll probably post that maybe the day or two after I post this video. But that is gonna be it for this video. Hope you enjoy the update. Hopefully you stayed to watch the entire thing. I know this is a long video, but covering 4 different tanks is always gonna be a long video. But if you're not already subscribed, be sure to subscribe. And also smash that like button. Comment, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the fish. And yeah, that's gonna be it for everyone. Thanks for watching. Peace.